Director Brockschmidt, please start.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Benjamin Brockschmidt. I'm the Vice President of Policy and the Executive Director of the Infrastructure Council at the Illinois Chamber of Commerce. I've heard a lot today and I had prepared remarks, but let's get to the point. If transportation investment is not a socioeconomic crisis, we're pretty damn close. And the reason I say that is when you compare us to other states, when you compare us to the national environment, a federal government that over the last 10 years has had to inject the Highway Trust Fund with just over $70 billion to keep the federal side solvent. Now, this is at the same time that the federal government has moved toward more of a competitive grant program. And of the two large competitive grant programs, the last time that those came up, the FAST, now Infra grants, and the Tiger grants, there were $20.9 billion in applications for a little over $1.3 billion awarded. Of that $1.3 billion awarded across the country, the state of Illinois got $36 million. Now, we've been told and heard that in January of 2018, there's going to be a big push from the federal government, from the president, from the White House to address infrastructure investment. What we understand is that this is going to rely very heavily on states that are willing to help themselves. And Illinois has not been willing to do that. As we're talking about the cost of transportation investment, and really it's infrastructure investment, we're here to talk about transportation, but our clean and wastewater systems need $34 billion of investment over the next 35 years. Our waterways are sitting around $1 billion, and the numbers on our transportation infrastructure range from $45 to $75 billion just in our existing infrastructure. But the state of Illinois, despite being third in freight value, third in freight ton, despite being the sixth most populous state in the U.S., ranks behind Iowa, the 30th most populous state, and Wisconsin, the 20th most populous state in terms of our per capita infrastructure and transportation investment. Now, when we're looking at our location, and we've heard about the number of railroads, the number of waterways, there are a number of commercial and freight airports that serve Illinois as well. Just in, out, and within the state of Illinois, so coming in, coming out, and within our borders, we're moving about 1.23 billion tons of goods and materials. By 2045, that's to have a 40% increase to 1.72 billion tons. That value is $2.97 trillion in 2014. So just under $3 trillion of goods and material are moving in, out, and within the state of Illinois. By 2045, that sees a predicted 56% increase to $4.3 trillion. Behind that is a lot of jobs. Trade is one of our biggest areas of growth in Illinois, about 9.2% of our GDP. 22% of jobs in Illinois are connected to trade in one way, shape, or form. Those 22,000, almost 23,000 companies, 90% of those are small or mid-sized businesses. So while it's easy to focus on large companies and their needs, small and medium businesses are ultimately what drives growth here in the state. And those 22,000 businesses connect to 215 international markets. How do they connect to those 215 international markets? By transportation, by the 6 Class 1 railroads that serve Illinois, by the inland waterways that connect us to the Port of New Orleans, by facilities such as the Illinois International Port District that also provide access to the St. Lawrence Seaway. When we're going beyond freight, we need to talk about the access to transit. And we've heard from the transit agencies, but transit goes beyond just the Chicago area. Transit is in every part of the state. It might not be CTA lines, it might not be buses. In some areas, it's as simple as a van that goes out and makes sure people can get in and out of a city so they can access medical treatment, so they can go to work. That exists. That impacts everybody. Harvard University, just over 2 years ago, did a study, and they weren't the first ones, and they probably won't be the last, that found that access to transportation is the biggest driver of economic mobility. Access to transportation. Illinois is sitting at 4.9% unemployment, putting us 41st in the country. Again, for being the third largest in freight value, 6th largest in terms of population, for having a city, an area that can connect you anywhere in the world in 24 hours. We're way behind Iowa and Wisconsin, who again are spending more on transportation per capita than we are. Within the Chicago region, the Brookings Institute estimates that 23% of residents have access to gets them to work in 90 minutes or less. In Cook County, some numbers have transit deserts, areas where people are farther than a quarter mile or half mile from transit, at around 400 to 500,000 people. And that's just for Cook County. That doesn't include the collar counties. That doesn't include the rural counties. But that's a lot of people that don't have a lot of options on how to get to and from home, to and from loved ones, and are much more hesitant to take those next opportunities. Several people have mentioned the $7 billion lost in productivity and the additional 61 hours behind the wheel that people in the Chicago area spend. Those are people that can't spend more time at home, and those are people who employers are more hesitant to hire. Because when we're looking at the shiny objects of the world, we're looking at the big companies that are looking for their next headquarters, for their next distribution facility, for whatever that next thing is. They're looking at access to workforce. And it's not just the workforce downtown here in the city of Chicago. That's the workforce across 102 counties in a state of 12.5 million people. People want to get to work. They want to get to their next educational opportunity. They want to do better. So as we're talking about the fact that Illinois is only spending about $1.9 billion on transportation, given the way that funds have shifted around, when we look at states like Florida, Texas, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Indiana, the list goes on and on. 23 states over the last 2 years have increased their transportation investment. Despite the fact that Illinois is really the heart of the North American transportation network and the heart of the North American economy. We can get anywhere in the country in 48 hours from here. We have access to nothing but good ideas and good people. Those people, those products, need a well-invested transportation system. And as I said, we can sit here and wait for the federal government to step up and do their part, but quite honestly, I don't see them coming through the way they need to. And it is on us in 2018 to not push this issue in the back burner anymore. If we're talking about growing the state, one of the number one things that business needs, that strong business needs, that helps contribute to a strong economy, that helps prevent and stop the bleeding of population from the state of Illinois, that's access to transportation. That's options for people and goods to move where they are to where they want and need to be without worrying about, well, does it take me 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 45 minutes, or 2 hours to get there? Without worrying, are my products going to get here today or are they going to get here tomorrow? Do I lose out on that customer because I can't guarantee the delivery of my products? And while there's a lot of shiny things in the room, there's a lot of driverless vehicles, electric vehicles. We can't worry about today unless we're taking care of ourselves. We can't worry about ourselves tomorrow if we're not taking care of ourselves today. And as we go into 2018, you'll hear from two gentlemen who are very smart who can talk a little bit more about some of the stats and figures about the needs we have and the impact on local systems. Keep in mind, it's about the people at the end of the day. It's about the people businesses want to hire and the people who want to work and get to that work. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President of Policy, Benjamin Brockschmidt.